Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special report. Today, I'm going to be tuning into the current transit of Venus in the sign of Libra, and I'm going to be introducing the progress that Venus is making over the next several months. In part, over the last few years, I have really dedicated myself to tracking the cycles of Venus and Pluto. And Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn for the last 20 years or so. Her conjunctions have always been in the sign of Capricorn. But this year is different, and it marks a very significant and important turning point in the Venus cycles. And so I've decided to end this year with a dedicated class series, a continuation of my Love Evolution class series, but devoted to Venus as an active revolution, love as an active revolution in particular. And we'll, in the class series, explore our own natal Venus, our own Aquarius, Pluto transits, and the significance of what's happening with Venus and Pluto at the end of this year as they both conjoin with Ceres, the mother goddess. Because there is, you know, love as at its core, right? Our desire to return to source is our foundational root of consciousness, and it is the bottom line in what would create what we might consider utopia on Earth. And while we seem in this moment to be significantly far from that utopian ideal of love, connection, community, values that are oriented in sustaining humankind in a peaceful and harmonious way, this particular transit, including what we're cycling through at the end of this year, is really the gateway to that kind of created life on Earth here. And I want to really dive into this. What does it mean to choose love, to choose our path of awakening? What does it mean to dismantle the shadow aspects of our consciousness in relationship to love itself, and to create and seed a new way of being? And it's not just being in romantic relationship, because if love was exclusive to romantic relationship, um, it wouldn't be love, right? Love is something that we are, and it's something that we share with others. And of course, there are forms of it, right? Capricorn structures forms of it. And that has been a part of what we have established as our forms of security: emotional security, physical security, financial security, um, attachment, right? So here's where we are. We're in this beautiful time right now. Venus just entered the sign of Libra. And if you followed my Love Evolution classes over the last couple of years, all of the introductions to those classes are available free on YouTube on my channel. If you just search for Michelle, Astrology with Michelle, Love Evolution, you should find those. And I might even create a playlist for it so that you can find them easily. But what we are working with right now is Venus culminating her cycle with the South Node. The South Node is currently in Libra. It's been in Libra the last year. And that has really challenged us to let go of patterns of people pleasing in relationship, especially, but where as our committed relationships, our family relationships, our work relationships are out of balance, where there's been disharmony and discord, and at the very foundation of that has been the suppression of our needs, our desires, our voice. And I talked a little bit in the week ahead this past week around the activation of the voice, right? And Venus is about listening, right? It's especially in Libra, it is the relationship of listening. And listening is a reciprocity exchange. You're hearing me now. I'm sharing my voice. I'm sharing my thoughts. I'm sharing my feelings. I'm sharing my values. I'm sharing my desires. And you actually are getting to receive that. And what happens inside of you is that there's some impact, right? This is what I value so deeply, this relationship that we have on YouTube. You know, you're watching this video and it matters so much to me. I have care and respect, and um, there's a lot of love that I am, transmitting in these, because I'm sharing so much of myself. And in your listening, you're receiving so much of me, which is just this really beautiful exchange. And that's why it's so important to me when you leave your comments or you leave, you know, your reflections of how my words, and what you hear from me impacts you. And I never know what's going to impact you. I just have to speak from the heart and trust myself, right? This is a development. Relationship is a development of self-trust. It's such a powerful development of self-trust and of self-listening, of inner listening. And as we're in this process with Venus in the sign of Libra, we are relationally learning how to listen to ourselves and how to speak and communicate our hearts and our desires, uh, while letting go of patterns of preemptively trying to please others, whether through control, manipulation, emotional suppression, right? Right. If I'm trying to posture myself to please you, I have to deal with it every time I publish a video where I potentially say something that's controversial, but that is important to my heart, right? And I think that's part of this whole Mars-Jupiter cycle. We're really in particular learning how to see where our thoughts create conflict. And some of the thoughts that create conflict are those thoughts that elicit guilt, right? The thoughts that elicit shame. As we're in this Virgo time in particular, we're going to be in contact with that, because it's through relationship that we learn about ourselves. It's through relationship that we develop. And of course, um, Cancer, Capricorn, the mother-father relationship are usually the primary relationships that are where we source that sense of validation, security, emotional stability. And if those have not been healthy or even present or available to us, then it's through the masculine feminine, or the what we would call the intimate relationship, or the interpersonal relationship, where there's depth in commitment, that we then try and reconcile. We try to reconcile the inadequacies of our parents' lack of ability to meet our needs in those relationships. And thus, immense pressure becomes placed on those relationships, either for us to meet our needs, for us to be pleasing, or for those relationships to meet our needs and for those relationships to be pleasing. And in some cases, that can happen really beautifully. Many people, find a partnership where there's compatibility and harmony. And this is not just in a romantic relationship, where you can find a business partner where we just collaborate really well and where we complement each other and where we are excited. We can find a friendship where we just sync together and there's joy and there's magnetism that happens. We can find a tribe of people where we just feel like we can be ourselves, right? And we seek for all these relationships to then be able to actualize the parts of ourselves that have unmet needs. One of the things that was deeply triggering for me as I was learning this modality of co-counseling was this idea that from our childhood, we have unmet needs, and those needs become what they call frozen needs. And that frozen needs can essentially never be met, right? There's sort of like a hunger in a way that can never be resolved. And I don't know that I necessarily resonate with that idea, but I do resonate with the idea that all of those unmet needs from childhood will play themselves out in relationship with the desire to be met. And when that desire becomes plutonic, an obsession, a demand, a requirement, that is when it becomes um, a challenge to relationship, because that is when that desire overtakes um, from the child evolutionary body, our emotional body, and enters into a place of being ruled by the ego, trying to feed a sense of power, security, or control. And so what we're going to do in this class series is we're going to explore Venus through the signs. Now, in my previous Love Evolution classes, I've gone through all of the signs. We've gone all the way around the zodiac learning about Venus. But we're going to focus specifically in this class series at the end of the year here, which is beginning in September, just after this new moon, on Venus and Libra, right? Venus and Libra are our relationship to relationship and what's transforming as she goes through the South Node. You'll see her here, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more in the month ahead. But she moves through the South Node over the first couple of days of September. Then she conjoins with Juno, who's the goddess of marriage and commitment, the wife of Jupiter. And we have, probably, let's see, her conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. And then we have her square to Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn. And this is the last and final square evolutionarily that she will ever make to Pluto and Capricorn. So this is a very significant square. It's a crisis of that consciousness that we've been working out for some time, and it is preemptive to the new moon eclipse that we have in early October. So there's a seed of this crisis that gets resolved in this last quarter square. If we've been really struggling in relationship to get our needs met, there is something that has to give, right? We have to let go, change our mindset, do something different, recognize the limits of the relationship or whatever it is. And this can be applied to any particular area of our life. And what's unique about my class series is that we always apply it to your natal chart. I feel like chart practice is one of the most important things that we can do, because I don't want to just theoretically teach about the archetypes or the transits. I want you to be able to understand how this is unfolding in your life, what part of the archetypal story is being healed, and what we're learning as a part of that compelling shift in our own evolutionary journey in our personal relationships. So I'll read to you just a little bit of the Venus in Libra, and I'll be teaching on this in the class series. But this is from Jeffrey Wolf Green from the Pluto 2 book. He talks about Venus and Libra individuals have learned all that they understand as to who they are, right? We learn about ourselves through the initiation of all kinds of relationships, through people who symbolize the diversity of life itself. As we initiate such relationships, the Venus and Libra person learns to evaluate who they are in contrast to that which they are not. This person values this, that person values that, and so on. And thus, these relationships and individuals learn about who they are through a counterpoint awareness. right? That's the balance. And what's the counterpoint? It's Aries, Mars. And we have right now Mars in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. And Venus will make a square to Mars before, and in this time. Inherently, the reality of Libra is learning balance. Archetypally, it is defined through extremes, the opposite of balance, right? And we're going to see that very much as Venus opposes Chiron in Aries, as she squares Mars, right? Where the archetype of Libra reflects a psychological condition in which the Venus and Libra person feels that they can only value themselves to the extent that they value other people, that other people value them. I'm sorry. I just did a Freudian slip. To the extent that other people value them, right? And so this is like, I'm only worthy of love if I'm in a relationship, or if I'm only worthy of love if this person likes me and if I'm pleasing to them. And so thus we can contort ourselves, whether it's through beautification, whether it's through personality, whether it's through being so available in relationship to meet someone else's needs, because to the extent to which we might not be able to meet their needs might indicate a condition of not being worthy of love. And that's a really hard condition to overcome if especially love is a conditional exchange, right? And a part of what we're lacking in that is we're wanting unconditional love. We're wanting love from our creator, our source. So, this Venus and Libra time is a very significant um, movement forward for us. And then she enters the sign of Scorpio. Now, I'm going to be teaching throughout Love Evolution, and I'll give a solid introduction to all of this in the intro class coming up, which will be free and available on YouTube. But in this class series, we're going to be going into each of these archetypes. So Venus in Libra, Venus in Scorpio, Venus in Sag, Venus in Capricorn, and then Venus in Aquarius, culminating with the Venus series conjunction, Venus Pluto series conjunction, which seeds the new cycle of the next 20 years. 20 years of Venus conjoining with Pluto over the course of its transit through Aquarius, a whole new revolution as to how we relate to love, connection, our humanity, our values, what we're doing will be planted by the end of this year, and that's significant. So I want us to give a good deep dive to that. I'll talk more about this in the month ahead. I will have the link to register for Love Evolution in the description below, as long as you'll find also the full explanation of the class series. And you're welcome to join me for the free intro class, which will give us a full picture of the remainder of this year relative to this Venus-Pluto cycle. So thanks so much for listening, my friends. I hope this supports your journey, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.